that King Amaziah did right in the eyes of the Lord, but not perfectly. He did right in the eyes of God, but not wholehearted. He did right, he tried, but then there were times where he really didn't try. His father was Joash, and Joash was the king when he was a child that Jehoiada the high priest had saved. And so long as the high priest was alive, Joash, Amaziah's father, was a good king. He was a righteous king. He restored the temple. He brought great wealth to the people of God. But when the high priest died, he ventured off and did his own thing, and eventually he was assassinated. So when his son Amaziah comes to the throne in 2 Chronicles chapter 25, the first order of business is he has all those assassins arrested. And they come before his throne pleading for their lives. And he says, I know the law of Moses. I know the scripture. You guys will be put to death, but your sons won't be. I won't take the sins of the father and put them on your whole family. You can pay the price yourself. And he began as a good king. He was a king of Judah. And he did a census and found out that he had 300,000 soldiers, a mighty army in those days. But he wanted more men. So he took from his treasury, almost exhausted it, and he hired another 100,000 warriors, mercenaries. And as he was going to go to battle against the Edomites, the man of God, the prophet, spoke to him and said, don't you take those mercenaries. God is not with them. And he said, but I've spent a fortune. I've exhausted my money. I need them to win. And when I win, I can replenish. And he said, God is not with them. Cut your losses. So he sent all those mercenaries home, even though they caused him some trouble. That's a good lesson in itself, isn't it? Maybe some of us are in relationships that are not going to work. Cut your loss. Maybe some of us are headed down a career path that is not going to bring fulfillment or satisfaction. Cut your loss. The further down you go, the worse it's going to be when you lose out. You're better repenting quickly. So he goes to battle and he wins against the Edomites. He defeats them. He takes them captive, marches them up a hill, and has them pushed off a cliff. Kneel splat, man after man, 10,000 times. He watches with bloodlust as the Edomites are dashed upon the rocks. Something changed in his heart. God gave him a victory and he stayed bitter. God gave him a victory and he stayed cruel. And then he got stupid. He went into their temple and he took their statues and their gods and he declared to the nation, these are now my gods. Let's not take the gods of defeated people and make them our own God. God had given him the victory, and then he takes the gods of the Edomites, begins to pray to them, and then he goes to the king of Israel and says, I want to fight you now. And the king of Israel says, I don't know who you think you are. I'm like a cedar tree, you're like a thorn bush. A little squirrel could come and crush you. But you want to mess with me? It'll be your downfall. The man of God came back to the king Amaziah and said, don't do this. God is not with you any longer. You've forsaken the Lord. You've gone after the gods of the Edomites. So you will lose. And he said, who do you think you are to be my counselor? I don't need you. You're not on my payroll. Go back to church boy. When they go to battle, the king of Israel sees him and captures him. Sees his sons, the princes, and captures them. And he brings them in chains back to Jerusalem. And he watches his men as they knock down the wall of Jerusalem. And then they ransacked the temple that his father had restored. And they took all the gold and all the silver. He ends in utter defeat and disgrace. God gave him a victory. And what did he do with it? I have no doubt that God will give us many victories in life. But we have to remember we can't stay bitter with those victories or we'll lose them. We can't become arrogant or we'll lose those victories. We can't begin to ignore God or we'll lose those victories.